All right, live once again, early on a Monday morning. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the role of empathy and understanding and how it is strongly absent in the vast majority of online dating dialogues and interactions. And I would say even in social media as well. And I'll say, just from the start, I have a high probability of predicting that the view and engagement of this particular live stream will be a lot less than the one that I did maybe last week talking about the most alarming trend. And I think this is very likely just negativity bias, because if you don't know this, human beings seem to have a very strong bias, almost like an exponentially stronger bias towards negativity, where it's like, if you post, yep, good morning, Seattle. Um, so humans have this bias where if you post like, here's the problem, here's this alarming thing, pretty much everyone will engage with that. But then if you're like, here's the solution, here's how to fix it, everyone's like, don't worry about it, who cares? So that's just a funny thing. And you can look up negativity bias if you are new to that concept. But it's basically how social media functions, which at this point, a lot of social media is just sort of Jerry Springer, like trashy daytime TV, bringing out the absolute worst aspects of humanity. So I can talk a little bit about social engineering as well, how shows like Jerry Springer and then shows like Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm and Friends and Sex and the City had a pretty strong negative impact on the world as we see it today. And I think in particular, Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm really created millions of self-absorbed, entitled, neurotic, miserable people. Friends and Sex in the City created millions of the same, but also very weak men and very self-absorbed females, and people that completely trivialize sex and casual sex, and basically just created these dynamics and these views of real world dynamics that are not really matching with what actually works for humans in the real world. So I can get into that a bit later. But the point of the whole live stream is the dire need for empathy and understanding in the modern online dating arena. And why is this the case? Well, because I think unequivocally we can understand that the vast majority of people experience jadedness, bitterness, hopelessness, feeling resentful, and a whole slew of negative emotions as it relates to this. And of course, it's very easy to get angry or bitter or resentful or hurt when we don't get what we want, and when things don't go the way that we want them to go, and when things are not the way in which we think they should be. Because when you really simplify it and break it down, what underlies people's anger, frustration, resentment, all of these things, it comes down to not getting what they want in the simplest of terms. This is usually what motivates a lot of human behavior. There's fear and anxiety and the whole reproductive side of things. And then there's, I don't get what I want, so there's conflict, or things aren't the way that they should be, so there's conflict, or I can't negotiate and work with other human beings, so there's conflict. And this really sums up what what consumes a lot of human beings, for better or for worse. And these are not the highest aspects of ourselves. These are the lowest aspects of ourselves. And if we have millions of people completely consumed and engaged in the lowest aspects of their organism, we can't really be surprised when the outcomes are maybe not that positive, or not that good to look at, or not that enjoyable. So, of course, oftentimes there is some validity to being angry or being resentful or being frustrated with situations, because let's face it, some things are just messed up. Some people are messed up. There are genuinely ignorant, mean people in the world, or maybe people just having a really terrible day or whatever. Things happen, of course. There's legitimate expressions of these emotions, is what I'm trying to say. Because ultimately, life is risky. Doing anything is risky. Doing anything is kind of a pain in the ass, kind of difficult. Well, I should say, doing anything worthwhile, doing anything meaningful. And I think the more meaningful and worthwhile the activity is, probably the more of a pain in the ass and the more risk might be involved. But the problem is that we have millions of people that want to do these great things and they want to have all these great things, but they don't want any of the risk. They don't want any of the responsibility, the accountability, the discipline, the dedication, the hard work that and the pain and the struggle and the strife that comes along with that. They just want the reward. My title says understanding. Well, maybe more people will click because of the typo. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure why I had there were so many typos when I was doing that. I don't know why it was so hard, but I'll see if I can fix it. Um, yeah, I just changed it. So hopefully that works. Um, so yeah, life is risky. Being vulnerable is difficult. And obviously interrelating with other human beings in a intimate manner is risky. So life is risky. Doing anything meaningful is risky and difficult and kind of a pain in the ass. And then you really can compound that when you bring in two people doing this. And if you have two people that are on the negative side, just out for their own ends and really self absorbed, then the outcomes are almost guaranteed to be negative. The scale in which that negativity might present itself could be very short, it could be very long, it depends. But it's almost a guaranteed outcome. Like if I went outside right now and I dropped this coffee cup off of my balcony, pretty much guaranteed when it hits the concrete, it's going to shatter. That's a pretty guaranteed thing. So I think as it relates to empathy and understanding, and as it relates to people being upset and angry or mad because they're not getting what they want or things aren't going the way in which that they think they should be going, there's a value in starting to look at the other person's experience. Some might call that empathy. Obviously, that's a manifestation further down the road, but at least in the beginning, investigating to discover whether or not that person or that group of people is even capable or able to provide the thing that we think we want, and to see if their wiring and the capacity of their system is such that the outcome that we want or the thing that we're looking for, is it even possible, or is it just completely impossible? It's like if you took a dog and you, I don't know, put it in the driver's seat of your car and we're like, okay, drive the car. Okay, drive the car. Like there's no world in which that's even remotely possible. If you took an infant who's like 6 months old and you're like, okay, now here is algebra. Can you solve this equation? It's just, I mean, that would be insane. But as it relates to online dating or many instances of modern relationships, people are kind of functionally doing the same thing. They're expecting and demanding things that, on one hand, maybe they themselves aren't even capable of doing, or even capable of bringing out into the world or expressing. And subsequently, maybe even the other person they're dealing with doesn't have the wiring or capacity or life experience to even provide the thing in which they think they're looking for. So there's really a lot of value in taking a dispassionate, honest look at whatever situation that we may find ourselves in whatever people that we're dealing with, and then understanding their position, understanding their life experience, understanding their point of view, understanding their actual mentality, so that you can then operate from some degree of empathy or understanding from where they're coming from, to be able to even accurately say, can they even provide this? Are they even capable of doing this or no? So I can give you really easy examples of this, talking about male and female. So I think this is where a lot of people go wrong, and why I personally find all the like feminist stuff pretty disgusting and intolerable and insufferable, and all the red pill men stuff to be equally as insufferable and disgusting and kind of a waste of time. Of course, there can be validity in each position, and they can say some true things and have some useful things. And often they are responding to actual things that are really occurring, but maybe just not in always the most constructive way. So, on one hand, if we talk about men, so typically what happens is, from what I've seen, they often are complete slaves to their base desires, indulging and exaggerating every feeling, every need. And it's like, okay, porn, jerk off, video games, eat. Porn, jerk off, video games, eat. Go online, say negative things about other people, and be crabs in a barrel and undermine and shit on other people. Porn, eat. Look at women, chase, depressed, porn, eat. Just like this cycle of kind of mechanical. I feel it, I have to do it. I feel it, I have to do it. I feel it, I have to do it, with like no discipline, no focus, no meaning, no purpose, no skill, no dedication, no maturity in any way, shape, or form. And like, oh no, discomfort, have to avoid that. Oh no, this is hard, I can't do that. So if a guy exists like that, and a female goes to them and expects communication, stability, maturity, honesty, transparency, respect, it's pretty unlikely that a person existing in that state can provide those qualities, because there's nothing in their life that really sharpens those tools or really requires those qualities to come out, because they're just living almost like a hamster in a cage, where it's like run on the wheel, take a shit, run on the wheel, take a shit, drink water, go hump something, run on the wheel, take a shit, play video games, scroll online, be mad, listen to music, be mad, stimulate yourself, watch TV. Just this like endless cycle of meaningless, pointless sensory stimulation. So of course, if a female or any mature adult looks to them for stability, maturity, communication, transparency, honesty, strength, dedication, discipline, focus, clarity, it's just they literally can't do it. Maybe they can pretend for a little while, or maybe they can pretend online, maybe they can pretend, in a virtual world, but in the actual real world in which we inhabit, it can't be done. So, what's the outcome of that going to be? Probably negative. But if a guy has those qualities within him, the negative ones that I'm speaking about, and then he interacts with females, and it's almost guaranteed to spin out in a negative way, what do? Oh, well, women are trash, society is trash. Um, or I have to go to the other extreme and just say, you know what, I'm going to only be like monk mode and ninja mode, and I'm going to isolate myself. And it's just flipping from polarity to polarity, which I can understand and empathize with, because unfortunately, there's often not a lot of options and not a lot of healthy examples of things. It's kind of just grifters. Especially if you look online, it's mostly just grifters, people that profit from both ends of this inherent internal lack. I'm speaking about from men. You have the female grifters of like the porn stars and the OnlyFans and the chat bots and the webcam and all that perversion, grifting and parasiting off of this guy. But then on the flip side, you have all the red pill guys that are grifting and parasiting off of the same internal lack. So That sucks. That's not great. Like, and then if a guy turns on the TV or watches modern movies or TVs, it's be weak, don't have an opinion, shut up, you're a piece of trash, your time is over, everyone hates you, just shut up and sit down, and basically all this kind of hateful rhetoric. So it's very easy to be like, well, screw it. Maybe I'll just play video games because at least I can, I don't know, have some competency. Or it's, of course, when in actuality, the solutions and the things are not particularly complicated. They don't require thousands of hours of red pill podcasts. It's really not that hard. And it's things that I've discussed in previous podcasts and things that I've gone over many times. So I'm not going to do it now because I've already done it. I'm just trying to illustrate one extreme or one part of the duality here, or the polarity, and demonstrate how, if a person's operating from that place, then of course the outcomes will most likely be negative. And how, if females are looking to them for all these positive qualities, then they just can't, they just honestly can't provide them. And I think this is why I'm really not optimistic about the generation after the millennials, because it just looks really bad. When I see these people in public interacting with each other, when I see them online, it's just not a good look. And it's not a good look on either side. So next side of it is, obviously we can talk about females. And there's an Instagram clip which is really funny, but also deeply accurate, which I just put that in the chat box, and I'll put it in the link for the description as well. So I put it in the description as well, and it's like the day in life of being a girl. And it's basically, it's a joke, but it's also quite accurate, and it's the other side of the dysfunction that I was just describing for men, which is again one of these things where everyone's very comfortable to shit on guys. And I think, at least as guys, we can handle it a bit more. Like, part of how guys joke around and compete with each other in a fun way is kind of just roasting each other and being a little bit aggressively honest, assuming you actually know each other and are friends, and it's not just some random person that you don't know. That's kind of different. But it seems like if you have any opinion or any critique or any point out any dysfunction within that half of the population, all of a sudden it's nuclear war. It's like, okay, which even that is indicative of perhaps a lack of self-awareness, a lack of responsibility, a lack of accountability, a lack of maturity, a lack of stability, a lack of internal cohesion, a lack of strength. So I highly recommend looking at that silly clip or reel that I just posted. And on the flip side, or not on the flip side, also on Instagram, there's so many of these accounts that are just basically dedicated to female body dysmorphia, of like, look, here's me posed, I look great. Look, here's me normal, I look very different. Look, here's me posed, look, I'm normal. Here's me, look with makeup and filters, here's me normal. Everyone's like, it's okay to be you. Or like, here's me sitting down and like my skin does this thing that mostly no one would ever notice, but I notice it, so I'm putting it online and I'm telling everyone else that is normal, even though the girl doing it would, in pretty much every society, be considered extremely attractive. But in her mind, she's this like disfigured, just like disgusting thing. And it's like, dude, but there's millions of these accounts with millions and millions of followers. And I know that because I have business accounts that are in those niches and demographics, like female health, female wellness, fitness, self-help, these kinds of arenas. And my feed is full of these accounts, and it's hundreds of thousands of comments and engagements on basically just the most just basically the simplest way I could put it is the most profound level of insecurity, emotional instability, and bordering on mental illness, with just like an extreme level of a need for approval. It's millions of these accounts with millions and millions of followers, and that's basically the currency. And the only reason I say this and I point this out is if you look at the clip that I just watched, or that I linked to, and then you look at these accounts that are massively popular, and then you infer, just say, well, is this person even capable of supporting and loving another human being? Are they even capable of listening and hearing another human being? Are they capable of even differentiating, this is what I think and feel versus this is what this person says, means, or who they are? And these might actually be separate, different things, and they might not be one and the same. Odds are they're not even capable of that. And I can tell you that from my personal experience of knowing a lot of females. And I think once you actually zoom out and understand the internal world of people that you're dealing with, it, at least in my experience, kind of evaporates any of the anger, uh, frustration, resentment, disappointment. It just kind of evaporates a lot of the negative emotions, and you kind of just feel bad. Like you have almost a degree of pity and sympathy, because it's like you're expecting all of these things from this person who just literally doesn't have the mental space, the emotional space, or capacity to even provide them, because they're so profoundly self-absorbed in living and dying and breathing based on the subjective fluctuations of whatever they might think and feel in that moment, and however their uh, self-image and identity is constantly adjusting in relationship to that emotional fluctuation, which is unfortunately a description of a personality disorder, um, sadly. And this is something that I realized probably about 10 years ago, but took me a while to really articulate, is that I realized what I was dealing with a lot of the time wasn't a rational human being, or it wasn't someone that even saw me for me, or heard me, or listened, or understood, or any mature adult way of interacting. What I was interacting with was this insecurity and this emotional instability. What I mean by that is there's this profound, deep level of insecurity, need for approval, and just really strong fluctuation that's always occurring. So I realized what I was relating to wasn't necessarily a person. It was just where they happened to be on that sliding scale of how they were relating to their insecurity. On a good day, it might be fine. And then on other days, it's like you're walking on eggshells, and like they're just hyper irritated and hyper emotional and hyper reactive to everything. So that's not a really sane, rational human being. And that's also not even healthy. That's the that's unhealthy manifestations of natural biological processes. And if we break it down in a Chinese medicine sense, it's also extremely explainable. It's basically like a lot of blood deficiency and liver qi stagnation. If you look at the symptomologies of issues with blood and liver qi stagnation, it completely and accurately describes what I'm talking about here, in the relationship of even a sense of self, how that relates to these two components within Chinese medicine. So once I understood all these things, and I'm like, oh, this is what I'm actually dealing with. So then, in some ways, I kind of had to put, and this is sad to say, I kind of had to just remove myself from the scenario as a means of maintaining harmony or um, even survival in a way, and also just completely getting rid of the anger, the frustration, the resentment. Because if I go into this scenario wanting to be, I don't know, seen and heard and understood and respected and acknowledged like a normal human adult, it's not going to happen. And it's not that it's not going to happen because they don't like me or they don't want to or they're horrible people. It's more so that they just literally don't have the internal capacity for that. The wiring just isn't there. So then once you just kind of realize that you're just completely there for them 100%, and it's almost you put yourself in a bit of a subservient position, then actually, oddly enough, there becomes a certain degree of harmony. Now, obviously, that's not being a pushover. That's not just being a doormat, because you can do that too. That's not what I'm talking about. Uh, but it's also not really a very interesting or appealing dynamic, because what I noticed once that occurs is that sexual chemistry is usually gone, sexual interest completely gone, physical attraction completely gone. Because if you're relating to someone that's completely self absorbed into the sliding scale of their insecurity, and wherever they land on that scale in that moment or that day or that week, there's just nothing really that attractive about that in terms of being a human. The only way the only way that is left for a human being to find that attractive is to respond to the with a corollary degree of self-absorption. Meaning, if you're a guy and you don't want to see a person as a person and you just want to use them as an object, then a female existing in this state is a perfect counterpart, because they're not going to see you. They're not going to interact with you in that way because they're almost completely self absorbed. So all these doors of genuine connection are closed. So all that's left is responding in a corollary complementary way of the same degree of self-absorption, meaning you're out for your own end. You're not interested in the other person. All you're interested in is what you feel and what you want. So you get two really self-absorbed people interrelating, and then people are surprised when it doesn't work out. They're surprised when it goes poorly, or they're surprised when people treat each other poorly. It's like, of course, because you're two adults existing in an adult relationship, behaving like children. So how can you be surprised when the outcomes are proportionally relatively accurate to those things? But we have millions of angry feminists and millions of angry red pill guys all upset about all these things, when it really just comes down to these fundamental components. And it's difficult because it takes two people. Because if one person is not completely self-absorbed and actually willing to communicate, negotiate, uh, create a win-win scenario, it takes two people to come to both sit down at the table and say, hey, let's create a win-win scenario that we both really like and we're both really happy about. And that, maybe isn't 100% perfect 100% of the time, of course, because that's not real life. But it's 80%. It's good enough that it's a great thing for our lives, because nothing is ever going to be 100%. And that's just complete insanity to think. Like, I can tell you from someone who's been making YouTube videos for however many years it's been, 14, 15 years, and interacting with people and doing so many things and teaching classes and whatever, there's this profound level of logical lack, let's say, where if you say something, people are like, oh, that's not true, because it's not true 100% of the time across 100% of scenarios based on what I just imagine in my head. And it's like, bro, yeah, you live in the real world. Like there are things that might be 100% true 100% of the time, but when we start dealing with humans, that's not really how it works. like, uh, so, and that's just another example of what I'm saying, and it's really kind of a, uh, yeah, business idea. Retreats for broken red pill guys and broken feminists see that they both ultimately want the same thing, and that men and women aren't. I mean, it's not that bad of an idea. It's just I'm definitely not going to do it. I can admit I don't have the patience. I don't have the compassion, the patience, the internal framework to deal with that. Although I think it would be a really good reality TV show, um, to be able to do that, because those retreats are really popular. Especially throw in some cold plunges, throw in some eye gazing. People love that shit. So, anyways, I just went through those two examples of men and women. I'm not trying to put anyone down or knock anyone. I'm just trying to illustrate the point is if people are operating from this self-absorbed way, we can't really expect the outcomes to be anything other than negative. Because emotionally unstable, undisciplined, immature people literally can't hold space for other people, meaning they can't perceive other people. They can't listen. They can't hear. And if they can't do those things, that means they can't actually communicate and negotiate, which if they can't do those things, that means they can't have adult relationships. Pretty much all they can have are really immature relationships based on what you want right now, which might change in 10 minutes. Um, like it just, okay, so yeah, there's that. And then if people lack self-awareness, conscience, and accountability, then basically they function like children in the world. So they can't be surprised when the results of their adult relationships are not good. And that's pretty much all I had to say on that subject and the whole that point of the live stream. And it's a continuation on what I said in the one from, I don't know, last week. To where it's very easy to point out problems and be angry and resentful and bitter and hopeless, which to be totally fair, I am a bit hopeless and a bit pessimistic about the outlook of many of the people of my generation and the one further. But I'm optimistic for my own life and for my own capacities. And also just enjoying the process of learning and developing as a human being. Um, so yeah, if there's any questions on anything I just covered over the last 30 minutes, I'd be happy to do that. Uh, when will reishi be restocked on Hyperion herbs? I meant to put that back in stock, or not back in stock, but mark it as pre-order today because I got a solid ETA back from my packaging facility. So I'm aiming for next week to have it back in stock. But I'll mark it back in stock or for pre-order on the website this week so that people can get their orders in, and hopefully everything shipping out next week. To be totally honest, I got really hosed by customs and DHL, so I'm not using them anymore. And I'm actually in the process of completely overhauling and changing my whole supply chain and my whole production because I ordered my products like 2 months ago almost, and DHL took like 3 to 4 weeks to even deliver it, which normally it's like 5 days is typically what it is. But customs held it for like 2.5 weeks for literally no reason. And then it sat at the delivery facility for like a week. And it's like, dude. So yeah, I'm just completely overhauling my entire supply chain so that I can prevent this crap from happening again, because trying to forecast sales like 3 or 4 months ahead, it just find to be a kind of annoying. But also with the way supply chain's been going, just things are taking way longer. So I'm just changing everything, and hopefully cut everything in half and then avoid any of this out of stock stuff in the future. But it seems like I'm going to be able to do that. So that's what I've been working on alongside like 3 or 4 new products, which some will be in stock this month, some next month. So yeah, I'm in the process of sending out an email now. So if you're on the Hyperion Herbs email list, you'll get an email. I sent it out before I jumped on the live stream. But if you're not on the list, I highly recommend it. I send out emails every week, and they're usually pretty good. These streams have been great, very accurate insights. I'm 27. I've dated my girlfriend 5.5 years, and I'm glad I'm not on the market right now because most Western women are super brainwashed. Yeah, I mean, a lot of Western men are just as brainwashed as well. It's just our society is brainwashed, is socially engineered. It's kind of what I was saying from the beginning of saying that Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld created a generation of really just miserable, neurotic people, petty, entitled, and then Sex and the City and Friends and other shows just just took that to the next level. Um, let's see, my girlfriend is from Venezuela, and I found that dating American women was too much and not worth the games for the most part. Yeah, I mean, there's psychotic women from every generation. There's psychotic men from every culture. Um, basically, yeah, we're just living through a dark period of time right now where it's like kind of everyone's fucked. Like just as much blame as you could put on women, you could put on men as well. It's like, oh, women are sexually promiscuous, and it's like, well, but there's dudes there having sex with them. So it's two people in that bed. Or, oh, men are disgusting. They just want to have sex with women and throw them away. It's like, well, again, there's two people in that bed. So pretty equal blame. Of course, people can lie, people can deceive, or people can say, oh, yeah, yeah, I really want to be with you. But then these things tend to take time. Like it takes time to get to know someone. It takes time to prove and demonstrate qualities. Like anyone can just say anything, but actions speak louder than words and doing things over time. So yeah, anyways, see if there's anything else. Yeah, I can tell you a funny story. I've started watching this show called Match Me Abroad. Not Match Me Abroad, but Match Me Abroad, meaning foreign. uh, uh, so it's American men and women getting matched to people from different countries. So far, I've seen Czech Republic, maybe Colombia, somewhere in South America, and then Morocco. And I can tell you, just from watching this, I can see why Americans are looked at so poorly across the world because these people are going to these countries, these foreign cultures to date people from them, and they do literally zero research or investigation on the actual culture. And then when they get there, like, oh my God, this culture is so weird. It's so backwards. One guy was this dude from Arizona. The guy, this is a guy from Arizona. He's like 44, and he talks like a Kardashian. He's like, "Well, I'm from like Arizona, and I'm here to find like the love of my life, and like I'm gonna go to Morocco, like, you know what I mean?" I'm like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you're a 44-year-old man, and you talk like a Kardashian. Someone please tell this guy. I think his name's like Jeff or something. Just look it up. You can find it on YouTube. So he's in Morocco and he's on a date with this girl, and she's talking about how uh, in Morocco it's not normal to date multiple people. And she's like, look, if you're going to go on, 3, 4, 5 dates with 5 other women while you're here, then I'm going to have to just check out because we've been on a few dates. And if you're going to keep dating other women, then that's just not how we do things here. And he's like, well, in the normal world, it's totally fine. And I'm like, dude, you're such a uncultured, ignorant, small-minded dickhead. In the normal world, it's like, okay, let's break this down. You're leaving the normal world, which you're defining as normal, which it means America. You're leaving it to go to another country with a different culture that you did zero research on, which is a Muslim culture in Morocco, and you're putting it down and denigrating it and insulting it by saying it's not normal, but then you're defending your quote unquote normal culture, which is so good that you have to leave and go to another country because you can't find your own love in a normal culture. So that guy is insanely intolerable, as are the females in the show. And what I realize is they're both equally brainwashed and stupid. I shouldn't say stupid because this is I don't want to be too mean, but it's like I'm watching and I'm like, dude, you went into a different country with a different culture and you did no research about that culture and their customs and the way they're doing things. So you're the it's just like, dude, how small-minded and self-absorbed are you? You can't even spend 5 minutes. You can't even, on the plane, on the way over there, you can just go on Google and be like, huh, what's the culture like in Morocco? Or what's the culture like in Venezuela or Colombia or Czech Republic? Oh, what are some things I should know? What are things that are different? It doesn't take that long. You're already on your phone. You're on a plane. You could do it. It's the least amount anyone could do. But none of these people even did it. But what I'm saying is this guy Jeff is just as delusional and brainwashed and silly as this other female, which I almost spit my drink out when I was listening to this lady talk because I'm like, is this satire? Because she's like, so the context is she wants to go to the Czech Republic and, meet her match. And she's like talking about how she's a staunch feminist. She says it like 5 times. I'm a staunch feminist. I'm a strong feminist. I'm a strong liberal. I'm a strong leftist. Just keeps going. And I'm like, cool. That's your whole personality. Uh, Great. I already know how this is going to go. So she's going on and on about all this nonsense and how she wants a guy who's a super left progressive liberal feminist, but's also traditionally romantic. Whatever that even means. So she wants a complete contradiction. Because I would guarantee the guys that she met who were all liberal, leftist, feminist, she probably wasn't attracted to them. And then the guys that she met that were traditionally romantic didn't kowtow to her social engineering and programming. So they're closed minded, they're narcissists, they don't respect women, all this insane stuff. In actuality, they probably maybe would have treated her really well and given her exactly what she wanted. But because she's so brainwashed and confused, can't get it. So she's talking about how she wants a guy that's progressive, feminist, liberal, super leftist, but traditionally romantic. And she's like, I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic because look at me. I'm living proof that this is possible. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're single. And I hear the desperation and sadness in her voice. And when she's talking, her like body and her mannerisms and her eyes are like all over the place, which usually people do that when they're really uncomfortable and they're really emotional. And then the fact that her voice is like, yeah, I mean, I'm like, I'm like living proof of it, of that it's possible. It's like, no, dude, look at your nervous system. You're proof of why it's not possible. And then the cherry on the top and the icing on the cake is her career is dressing up as a Disney princess. And when I saw that, dude, I like almost completely spit the my drink out. I'm like, is this a joke? There's no way this is possible. I'm like, she's spinning all of this fantasy and nonsense. And then, oh wait, that's her actual career is to dress up and live fantasy nonsense. So she ends up going to Czech Republic, right? And her matchmaker is actually quite funny because her matchmaker is like, so, you're this American woman and you're this like feminist princess. But men in Czech Republic aren't interested in a feminist princess. And she's like, "Are you ready to, surrender to a man?" And she's like, no, I don't like that word. Very uncomfortable. I'm feeling triggered. I don't like the what that's implying." She gets all upset, and her matchmaker's like, "Okay, interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Well, you know, men in Czech Republic, it's a different culture. They're not really in this." She's like, "Well, I'm optimistic that the right one will be like the way that I imagine." And the lady's like, "Okay, all right." uh, the why I mention it is that this guy Jeff is just as delusional as she is. Firstly, he talks like a valley, like a Kardashian, and he's a 44-year-old man, and he's going to Morocco, which is a Muslim country, is very conservative compared to America, and very different. But he wants a wife and someone to raise his kids who's also going to spend half of their time outside of the house working. So he goes to Morocco. He's 44. He meets this girl that's like 25 or something, and he rejects her because they haven't had the same life experience. And he rejects these other Moroccan women because they don't want to work or something. And it's like, dude, let's just think this through. You went to this culture that's completely opposite of yours, and you wanted it to be like the thing that you left. And when you encounter someone who actually would have been a fit, meaning the girl in her 20s who was like, "Yeah, I want to have kids. I want to be a housewife, want to do these things. And, I also want to have my own business." The guy's like, she just doesn't, we don't have the same life experience. It's like, yeah, no shit, dude. You're a 44-year-old man from America. Like, are you looking for a buddy? Are you looking for a drinking pal who's like, you both served in Nam, or you both play Call of Duty every night? Or are you looking for like a wife? Like, so my point is, both of these people are so brainwashed and so confused that their efforts are completely self-defeating. And then there's another lady on the show that's like late 40s or 50s, and I don't really even want to get into that because she's also just a walking stereotype. Um like, so wound so tightly, so bitter, so resentful, so self-absorbed, so that she whenever she encounters any guy, it's like just kind of cringe. And her body language, her demeanor, her conversation style is so standoffish and unpleasant, and just contemptuous, is if that's even a word. Is just she's just sitting there like, "Oh, interesting. Oh, right. Okay." And it's like, dude, what do you expect? And I don't know if the matchmakers, like, I think the whole show just might be a joke. Like, someone in this production company or the matchmakers have to have a sense of humor. Cause I'm like, there's no way people could be this dim to take these people and match them with these people and think it's gonna work. Like, what basis of matchmaking are these people even doing? It just boggles my mind. And then one of the other characters is like a guy with Asperger's, like a legitimately somewhat mentally handicapped guy, and they're just sitting him out into the world to like Czech Republic to find a wife. I guess maybe they had to do it for like inclusion or something, but it's like, y- just watch the show and you can see exactly how this degree of self-absorption, basically everything that I've just been talking about for the last 2 live streams. Um, watch the show and you can see the dynamics completely at play from what I'm talking about. Um, you really have to consider someone's culture. I married to someone with an Eastern European background. You have to be grounded and stable. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think it just goes back to actually seeing people as people. Whereas the modern social engineering is just this amorphous blob where everyone is the same because everyone's so self-absorbed that you can't comprehend difference or distinction. But anyway, so yeah, I highly recommend checking out that show. It really illustrates so many of the dynamics that I've been talking about in both men and women. Um, and it just goes to show really the social engineering and programming and how that works against people and how they engage in these fundamentally self-defeating behaviors. So yeah, that's the live stream for today. Hopefully it's been entertaining. It's been funny, funny for me. I highly recommend checking out that show. You can look up clips on YouTube um, and see a lot of the absolute cringe that I've been discussing. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and really appreciate the support and the questions and the engagement. Hopefully, it's been entertaining and giving you some food for thought, and hopefully, you can navigate situations a little more efficiently and effectively. So, with all that being said, I'm gonna end the live stream here before I just go off on another tangent and keep repeating the same stuff. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are on the planet. I'll see you in the next one.